afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our today's seminar on learners with special educational needs, learners with sensory difficulty. Today, we will learn, share, and discuss the complexities of hearing and visual impairments, two fields that impact millions globally. So today, before we officially start, I would like to first introduce the topics we will be tackling today by our speakers. First is the deafness, which is to be tackled by our audiologist, Dr. Rachel Ann Gumanit. Second is the instructional programs for learners with hearing impairments, to be discussed by our SNED teacher, Ms. Carol De Malata. Third is the blindness, which is to be discussed by our optometrist, which is me. And lastly, the fourth one is the sensory processing disorder, or the SPD, to be discussed by our SLED teacher, Ms. Glyza Castillo. Now, please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Dr. Rachel Ann Gumanit, an expert audiologist with 15 years of experience.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be discussing deafness. But before that, what is sensory disability? A sensory disability is the ability of the senses, example, sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste. And the different types of disability affect one or more of the senses. Deafness. This means a hearing impairment associated with the child's ability to process linguistic information through hearing, with or without amplifications, is limited to the extent that it adversely affects his or her educational performance. Significantly, this limits the ability of children to process linguistic information or adversely affects his or her educational performance. It is the condition or ability where a person experiences total or permanent or great loss of hearing. It becomes a handicap because there exists a difficulty in communication. It becomes a hindrance of a person who has hearing impairment because there is a difficulty in communication. So let's proceed to the kinds of deafness. Number one is deaf, no usable hearing. So there are three types of deaf. First is the congenital deafness. So this is present at birth and develops in the uterus, but not necessarily the result of heredity. The second one is adventitious deafness. This results from illness or from accident. And the third one is hereditary deafness. This is caused by genetic disorder which may be transmitted by parents to offspring. And the second kind of deafness is hard of hearing. This is a condition where one experiences only partial or moderate loss of hearing. So this basically means that he didn't totally lose his hearing. Hearing impairment is a hearing loss in one or both ears that may be permanent or changeable, adversely affects educational performance, but is not included in the definition of deafness. Degrees of hearing loss. The unit of measurement of the loudness of sound of the threshold of the hearing sensitivity is called decibel. 0 to 20 decibel is called normal hearing. 20 to 40 decibel is what we call mild hearing loss. So they can hear this. 40 to 60 decibel is called moderate hearing loss. The normal conversation of this is into 3 to 5 feet. 60 to 80, this is what we call severe hearing loss. So the normal conversation of this is 7 feet away. 80 to 99 decibel is what we call severely profound. So they can only hear a food blend. And lastly, 100 decibel and above is what we call profound hearing loss. So they can only hear an aircraft takeoff. So imagine. So let's proceed to the cause of deafness. So first is the conductive deafness. caused by accidents resulting in injuries to the temporal area of the head, fracturing the palm. Inner ear is transmits sound to the brain. So the nerve pathways responsible for processing sound are components. So because of the damage, then the inner ear is affected, and this is called sensory neural weakness. The second cause of weakness is called mixed loss. It is a type of hearing loss, partly conductive and partly sensory. So this is the combination of conductive and sensory neural weakness. Means there are issues in both outer and inner ear. This type of hearing loss occurs when there is damage or dysfunction in multiple parts of the auditory system, making it more complex. So the outer, middle, and inner ear is damaged. So hearing loss occurs factors. So first is the malformation of the ear, nose, and throat. The second one is the rubella during pregnancy. Rubella infection in the mother can cross the placenta, causing congenital rubella syndrome. RH incompatibility. So if the mother has blood type positive and the baby is negative, then it can trigger immune reactions leading to hearing loss. And the fourth one is family history of hearing loss. The fourth one is family history of hearing loss. So this is the genetic predisposition to hearing loss. The fifth one is severe neonatal infections, meningitis, and low birth weight. So it's premature. Childhood infectious diseases such as mumps and measles. So that's why it is very important to have our immunization. And lastly, the autotoxic medications, so such as drugs. And how do people with hearing impairment communicate? Not all people who are deaf or hard of hearing communicate in the same manner. Some use sign language, some use cute speech, a visual mode of communication in which mouth movements of spoken language combined with cues to make the sounds of traditional spoken language look different. Some use their listening and spoken language skills with the aid of sensory devices such as hearing aids, cochlear implants, and others may use a combination of these methods. So these are the pictures of American Sign Language alphabet and use of American English. So the difference of these two is that Q speech is the combination of mouth movement and cues. So this one are the pictures of hearing aids and cochlear implants. So not everyone use hearing aids because it hurts them. And cochlear implants. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now let's proceed to our next speaker, a SLED teacher with 5 years of experience in the field, Miss Karen De Malata.
Good day everyone, so I am here to speak about the instructional programs for learners with hearing impairments. So I have here the speech, the language, auditory training, rhythm, and sign language. So let's talk about speech. Speech, articulation, or pronunciation, it makes use of the TVAC or the tactile, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic approach. analytic method, and the synthetic method. So multi-sensory method. So here in multi-sensory method, we can use the TVAC, which is the tactile, visual, auditory, and auditory. So in multi-sensory method, these engage more than one senses at a time to enhance learning and so that your learning will be more effective. So this is the strategies and methods in teaching speech. And here are some techniques: the imitation, the syllabification, visual illustration, facial expression, manipulation, speech exercises, tapping, natural gestures. Number 2, language. To develop effective oral and written language, like listening, speaking, speech, reading, and writing. When we say language, it's not only about oral, but also about written. So here in language, there are approaches in teaching language, the DOMA method and the multi-sensory method. The DOMA method, known as the vibration method, which is good for partially deaf individuals. When we say partially deaf individuals, is someone who experiences some degree of hearing loss but retains partial hearing ability. They are able to hear certain sounds but may struggle with others, such as loud noise, because for them, sakit ilahang dalungan if makahear sila o loud na mga noises. So number 2 is the sensory method, multi-sensory method, the TVAC, as what I have mentioned earlier. So here are some strategies, method in teaching communication skills, oral method. So number 1, manual method. Here in manual method is include non-verbal communication, such as pantomime, natural gestures, sign language, manual alphabet, or finger spelling. Number 2, the simultaneous method, which combines the oral and the manual, which is the visual and the verbal and the non-verbal. Number 3, the cued speech, which uses hand cues near to the mouth to differentiate that look similar when reading. So there is a cued speech. Magkuan sa mga teacher nga like while sila ba ang sign language ilan na daw sa ilang mouth. Okay, na some letters like, for example, the B and the P. Diba? It sounds like similar, but so para dali ra masabtan sa mga students, they use like this. Like, for example, the letter B and the letter P. The letter B and the letter P. So, number 4, communication, or the total communication, combines all available approaches communication. So, here in communication and in total communication, this is where all the available approach sa communication ilang use para ang ilahang pag-teach is effective. So, number 3, auditory training. In auditory training, developing listening skills, it involves competencies like awareness of the presence and absence of sounds, discrimination of environmental sounds, noisemakers, and musical instruments. Its ultimate objective is the maximum use of residual hearing and acquisition of good listening skill. So here in auditory training is where they improve person's ability to interpret of an auditory information. For instance, speech discrimination, practicing indifference between syllables, and music trainings. So here, number 4, rhythm. The tempo or beat. It involves rhythmic activities as walking, running, run, jogging, dances, and other which develop muscular control or coordination. One example of this is clapping. Developing a clap, you can make sound. So that is called mimicry. And number 5, the sign language. Sign language is visual, gestural system of communication, a creative language of deaf people and was created by the deaf people. So ang sign language is, ang nagbuhat dali is mga deaf people for the purpose of communication with each other. So sign language, visual and gestural form, and communication involves facial expression and body movement to convey a word. So later, I will teach you some alphabet of BSL or American Sign Language. So here are some characteristics of sign language. Sign language represent concept just words do. Signs are located in space. They are spatial rather than auditory. Sign language is composed of signs, gestures, and mind. The articulatory organs of sign language are the face, hands, arms, shoulder, and trunk region. So here are the American Sign Language alphabet. So I will teach you how to do this. This is the letter A, the letter B, the letter C, the letter E, the letter F, the letter G, the letter H, the letter I, the letter J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So this is the American Sign Language. And let's proceed. Deaf and blindness is simultaneous hearing and visual impairment, the combination of which causes severe communication and other developmental or educational needs that cannot be accommodated in special education programs solely for children with deafness or children with blindness. So this deaf and blindness, these disabilities involves a combination of hearing and visual loss. So it's stated here, additional accommodated and special education programs solely because it's difficult to teach them. You need more time, your effort, the perseverance para imo sila ma-teach. So, ang deaf and blindness, it impacts the communication, the social interaction, and access to information. So it is hard for them to communicate because they can see and they can hear. So one of the example is Helen Keller sa American worker. So I think that's all for my topic today, and thank you for listening.
So thank you for your amazing presentation, Teacher Dumalata. And now, as the third speaker, I will now be taking the stage. So my topic is about visual impairment. So visual impairment, including blindness, means impairment and vision severe enough to adversely affect educational performance, even when corrected. The term includes both partial sight or low vision and blindness. So visual impairment doesn't mean that you are already considered as blind if you have this one. So this is just a term expert use to describe any kind of visual loss, whether it's someone who can't see at all or someone who has partial vision loss. So if someone has claimed to have a visual impairment, it doesn't mean that he or she is already blind. So next is the blindness. So blindness and low vision can occur as a result of a number of different diseases, conditions, or accidents. Some eye conditions are congenital or present at or near birth, while others are caused later in life. Some specific causes of vision loss can include an injury to the eye defects, albinism, macular degeneration, diabetes, glaucoma, cataracts, and tumors. So we will discuss about that later. So blindness can be defined legally and educationally. So let's proceed with the legal definition first, which is measured based on first the visual acuity. This is the ability to clearly distinguish forms or discriminate details at a specific distance. So in other terms, only ang grado sa imong mata. It is the clarity or sharpness of your vision. So normal vision acuity has a normal condition of 20/20. So if you have a 20/20 vision, it means that you can still see clear things at 20 feet, which what should normally be seen at a distance. So it is measured by reading letters, numbers, or symptoms from a chart 20 feet away. So an example is the Snellen chart. So legal blindness is a condition where visual acuity is 20/200 in the letter I. So if you have a legal blindness now, it means that your vision begins to get blurry. So field vision. Field vision refers to the idea that normal eyes cover above, below, or on both sides when looking at the object or when gazing straight ahead. So your field vision means how well you can see above, below, or the sides of something you are looking at. So it means that if you are looking at a certain object at the center of your eye, you can still see above your vision without looking directly up, above, or below without looking directly below. And it also means that you can still see from your peripheral vision or at the side of your vision. So here. So we have the normal, which is approximately a range of 180 degrees set. So central field vision is being used when looking directly at the object. So it means that when the central field vision is what you see in the center of your eye. So we also have the tunnel vision, results from an extremely restricted field of vision. So tunnel vision is also known as the peripheral vision loss. So it means that it makes it hard for you to see or impossible to see objects that aren't directly in front of you. So it means nga, yung peripheral vision is the blurry na or the black. So ang clear na lang sa yung vision is your central field vision. So we also have the educational definition of blindness. So first is not all legally blind persons are totally blind. So as I have mentioned earlier that those who have visual impairments doesn't mean that you are already blind. It means that there are just different kinds of visual impairment. So instead, children who are blind are differentiated from those who have no vision. Why? Because children who are blind have little to no usable vision. So it means that they only rely on their senses like touch and hearing to navigate and learn. So that's when they often use braille and audio sources. Meanwhile, those children with low vision have some usable sight, but may need extra help like large print materials, magnifiers, or high contrast text to see better. So why are they differentiated? It means it is because their needs are also different based on their impairment. So let's proceed to the types and causes of problems of vision. So first is the errors of refraction. So we have here the hyperopia or farsightedness. So it happens when the lens fails to focus the light rays from near objects on the retina. The focus falls behind the retina because the eyes are too short from front to back. So it happens when the eye is too short or the lens isn't strong enough to focus on the light properly. So as a result, the light from nearby objects focuses behind the retina instead of on it, making nearby objects focuses they look blurry. So to correct this one, convex lenses are prescribed by the doctors to converge or bend the light rays on the retina to correct hyperopia. So we also have the myopia, or the opposite of the farsightedness, the nearsightedness. It is when the eyes are abnormally long from front to back and the lens fails to retract the light rays from distant objects on the retina. So it means that the eye is too long, or the lens bends light so much. So as a result, the light from a distant object, it focuses in front of the retina, making far away things to look blurry. So to correct this one, concave lenses are prescribed, which are thinner in the middle to help spread or diverge the light rays slightly to make you or help you see clearly or better. So next is the astigmatism. Cornea's lens is deformed, light becomes blurred. So in astigmatism, the cornea or the lens is unevenly shaped, more like a football than a round basketball. So this irregular shape causes light to focus on multiple points instead of a single one on the retina, leading to blurry or distorted vision. So to correct this one, the doctors may prescribe cylindrical lenses. Number 2 is the imbalance of the eye muscles. So first we have the strabismus, where the different images are cast on each retina, resulting to cross-eyedness. So strabismus is also known as cross-eyedness. It is because the eyes do not align properly. So each eye looks in different direction, so they send different images to the brain, leading to double vision or difficulty to combine images together. Next is the diplopia, or double vision. Results when the brain cannot use the differences in the images cast on the retina into a single image. The condition can be corrected with prescription lenses, exercises, surgery, or a combination of the three. So the diplopia, or double vision, happens when the brain cannot combine the images from both eyes into one clear image. So this can occur due to problems in eye alignment, muscles, or nerves controlling the eye movement. So next is the amblyopia. Occurs when vision is suppressed in on the eye and it becomes weak or useless. So in amblyopia, also known as the lazy eye, happens when one eye has bigger vision because the brain favors the other, which is the stronger eye. So it means nga, ang isa ni mong mata is weak siya and blurry ang vision, and the other one is stronger and clear ang vision. So it means that in amblyopia, your vision is not balanced. The other one is blurry and the other one is clear. So over time, the brain ignores input from the weaker eye, making it even less effective. Next is the nystagmus. It is a condition in which there is rapid involuntary movements of the eyeball. So it is a condition where the eye makes rapid involuntary movement, which can be side to side, up and down, or in a circular movement or pattern. So these movements make it hard to focus on an object, causing blurred or shaky vision. Next, the third one is the diseases of the eye. So we have 5 types of diseases. So first is the cataract. It is caused by the clouding of the lens, which results to progressive blurring of vision and eventually blindness occurs. So it is the condition where the lens of the eye becomes blotting or scattering the light. So this leads to blurry vision, difficulty seeing colors, glare sensitivity, and over time, progressive vision loss. So the common cause of this is the protein breakdown. Next is the diabetic retinopathy. Occurs when diabetes mellitus interfere with the flow of blood to the retina, causing it to degenerate. So this disease is an eye condition caused by diabetes. High blood sugar levels damage the small blood vessels in the retina, disrupting blood flow. So this can lead to swelling, leaking blood, or the growth of abnormal blood vessels, which damages the retina over time. So next is the diseases of the retina. So there are a lot of this. The most sensitive part, the visual mechanism, can be congenital or present at birth. So it means that it can be because of the genetic factors or developmental issues. Next is the retinitis pigmentosa, where it is a hereditary condition that results in the degeneration of the retina. So here, the retina slowly stops working, causing vision to lose over time. So glaucoma. It is a condition in which there is an excessive pressure in the eye. So it is a condition that damages the optic nerve. So we all know that the optic nerve transmits visual information from the eye to the brain. So if it is damaged, it can lead to vision loss or blindness. So lastly is the accident. So there are a lot of factors for vision loss because of accidents like car accidents, traumatic brain injuries, defective products, and many more. So that's all. Thank you. So my topic will be further added by our last speaker, a SNED teacher with 7 years of experience, Ms. Liza Bustillo.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Sensory processing disorder, or SPD. Sensory processing disorder is a neurological condition that causes people to misinterpret information received through one or many of the senses. These can cause severe functional impairment, which can be disruptive to daily life routines and learning processes for people with SPD. People with SPD are either hypersensitive, meaning they are overactive, avoid sensory stimulation, or hyposensitive, meaning they are underreactive and seek our sensory stimulation. So we have appropriate educational approaches for students with sensory impairments. Early intervention is very important for children who have sensory impairments. For children who are deaf or hearing impaired, early intervention will help to improve speech and language development. So through early intervention, we can help children with sensory challenges as early as possible. This support can help them learn to communicate, speak, and understand languages better. The critical period of language development happens before a child turns 3. So therefore, it's very important for children who are deaf or hearing impaired to receive early intervention services as early in life as possible. So we have here this list of strategies for general teacher to follow for deaf and hearing impaired students. First, we should always face student when presenting information. Why? Because some students they lip reading. They read the movements of your lips and your facial expressions. Second is allow the student to choose his or her seat in the classroom where she or he wants to sit comfortably, either in front or away from noise. And remember that students' speech translator only facilitates communication and does not provide instruction. Because interpreter only helps them understand what is being said, but you are still responsible for teaching them directly. Provide visual aids to support instruction. You can use pictures, videos, charts, or any other written instructions to help them lesson better and assess students' background and be aware of gaps in knowledge that could affect learning. We should check what students already knows and identify any areas that they might have missed due to their hearing challenges. And avoid ambient noise and noise distraction. For this, we can use a tool like mini microphone to make our voice clear. And early intervention services will help a child who is blind or visually impaired achieve milestones, begin their learning of basic concepts. During the first year of life, the majority of learning takes place through repetition and exploration. So here are the list of strategies for the general education teacher to help the blind or visually impaired students by using the following strategies. First, we should allow the students opportunities for tactile exploration by providing models, realia, and other hands-on aids such as manipulative objects. We designate a space for the students to store special equipment such as assistive and adaptive technologies. We can give verbal descriptions of visual information to make the students aware of transitions and other changes to his/her environment. Through this, even if the students wasn't able to see things around her or him through her eyes, she can still visualize it through imaginations. And second, make adjustments to lighting and increase the size of print if needed for them to be able to visualize it clearly. So here are the specialized adaptation aids and technology for students who are blind and with low vision. We have our first Braille. This is a system of reading and writing in which letters, words, numbers, and others are made from arrangements raised by opposed dots. So this is Braille. Through those opposed dots, the students will touch and they will able to analyze what letter is that. This is Braille and this is the alphabet, the Braille alphabet. And like Braille typewriter for communication and handwriting is stopped for them to sign with the papers. Dili nila gina-type ang mga words ngayon ang kailangan. This is a Braille typewriter. Only have 6 keyboards. And manipulative and tactile aids are used in learning mathematics, science, and social studies. It can help them count by just touching that manipulative object. And this, for person with low vision, they can use special optical devices and large screen. This is contact lens and eyeglasses. And classification, chair, and this table to them to be able to move freely. And this is a paper, recorded books, magazines, and other materials. Thank you so much, everyone.
So thank you, Ms. Liza Agustillo. So now we will wrap up our seminar. Thank you, our esteemed speakers, for sharing with us your insightful knowledge today. To wrap this up, please give our speakers a round of applause. So today, we will look forward to seeing you again at our next seminar. Thank you very much.